Welcome. This lesson is just writing the equations of lines given that they're parallel to another line or perpendicular to another line. For instance, this one says line J has an equation of y equals 7/3 x plus 10. It wants you to write the line of equation K, or line K, is parallel to J and passes through this point -4, -9. We want to write the equation of line K. It says write the equation in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is this form over here, y equals mx plus b. So right off the bat, without even looking, I could always type in y equals. Now I need to come up with the slope. Now, since it's parallel, the slope's going to be the same as the slope of this line. So I'm going to type in 7, if I can go back to here, 7/3 times x plus some b value. Now, the b value is not the same. It's not the same, otherwise it'd be the same equation. It's a different line. And it doesn't give us the b value, because remember, what's b? B is where we cross the y-axis. This is not the y-intercept. But we can find b by rearranging this equation and using this equation. So in other words, I can find my b value by taking the y it gives me of the point we go through. So again, what I'm going to emphasize is this point right here is considered point x1, y1. So I'm going to take a -9, because that's my y value of the point that I go through, minus off my slope. What's my slope? My slope, I said, was 7/3. It's the same as the other equation. Times my x value for the point that they gave me, which is -4. So now we just got to do our math and be careful. -9. Now, minus and a minus becomes plus. Now, this is 7/3 times 4. That's going to be 28/3. And it says to write your answer as improper fractions. So I'm going to actually get a common denominator of 3. That's going to be a -27/3. That's my 9 here, added to my 28/3. That's this 28/3. And obviously, -27 plus 28 is a positive 1/3. So my b value is 1/3. Okay, so we're going to do it again. We're going to first find out we have this equation here with a slope of -3/2. Line G includes the point -9, 10 and is perpendicular. Now remember, perpendicular means I'm going to take the slope they give me, or the slope of the original line, and I'm going to flip it upside down. So I'm going to put the 2 on top, I'm going to put the 3 on bottom, and I'm going to change the sign. Since this one was negative, this one will be positive. So right off the bat, I can type in y equals 2/3 x. Now I just got to find my b value. Now again, remember, b can be found by taking any y from a point, minusing off the slope that we're using for our line times the x value that went with the y value. So right here, remember, this is my x1, y1. So I'm going to take my y value of -10, and I'm going to minus off my slope. My slope was 2/3 times my y value, or sorry, my x value of -9. So that's going to be a -10. What's nice is negative times a negative is positive. 2 times 9 is 18/3. Oh, but 18/3 reduces to 6, so it's -10 plus 6, and -10 plus 6 is -4. So my b value is -4. I'm going to jump ahead to make sure I don't think anything else gets more difficult than this. Ooh, line F has the equation of y plus 8 equals 6 parentheses x minus 5. Line G includes the point -2, -1, and is perpendicular to line F. So we need to write the equation. Write the equation in slope-intercept form. So y equals, now I need to come up with the slope. Now, if you need to, take the time to get this equation into slope-intercept form. Distribute in the 6 minus the 8 over. But doing that in my mind, I can figure out that that right there, that 6 is my slope. Now, if I want to be perpendicular to a slope of 6, I'm going to do it as a 1 over 6. Because remember, 6 can be written as 6 over 1 if I flip it upside down or put the bottom on top and the top on bottom. Plus, 6 is positive, so my slope is going to be a negative. So I'm going to come over here and do a negative 1 over 6 times x. Now I just got to find my b value by taking my y value of the point that I go through, which is -1, minusing off my slope, which is -1/6, is the slope of the line that I'm trying to write, times my x value for my point, which is right here, which is -2. Well, that's going to be a -1. That's -1. Minus times a minus times a minus is still going to be minus 2 over 6. Because that's 1 times 2 is 2. 6 times, think of it as a fraction. Don't mess up with your fractions. That's -1 minus 1/3. And again, it asks for improper fractions. So I'm going to write that as a -4/3. Because I get 1 is 3 over 3 minus 1 more is -4/3. So my y-intercept is -4/3. Now again, if you weren't sure that 6 was the slope, like I said, do some algebra, rearrange, and find out, get that in slope-intercept form, and you'll find out that that is what the slope was. All right, so the equation of line P is y minus 7 equals -1/7 x plus 8. Parallel to line P is line Q, which passes through this point. Write the equation of line Q, write the equation in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form, y equals, I need the slope. Since it's parallel, by the way, this equation here is in what's called point-slope form, and I taught some of you point-slope form, but right here, that is still the slope. If I want to be parallel, I'm going to keep that slope. So I'm going to do a -1 over 7, because the slope is the same, times x. Now I'm going to use my point here, this x1 value, this y1 value to find my b. B is equal to y1 was 1 minus, what's my slope? Slope was -1/7 times my x value. What's my x value? -5. It's over here, right? And b then would be 1 minus, because a negative times a negative times a negative is negative. And I get 5 over 7, and 1 minus 5/7 will be a positive 2/7, because 1 is 7 over 7, and 7 minus 5 is 2. So my y-intercept is a positive 2. Excellent. Well, if you have any questions on this or need me to review this again in class, please let me know.